thank you for being here at this moment. Can everyone hear? I am sincerely grateful for this opportunity to meet with all of you. With my great aspiration to give pleasure to Radhanath Prabhu and Kaustuba Prabhu and Radhika Ranjan Prabhu and Chanava Devi, I am here. And I was just informed that there's a flower festival tonight. Actually, I'm leaving either late tonight or early tomorrow morning for a flower festival. Over 30 years ago, we began this flower festival at Radha Gopinath Temple in the Chowpatty neighborhood of Mumbai. Have any of you been to Radha Gopinath Temple? It was actually from there that Goverdhan Eco Village began. The flower festival began in a small way. It was January, and we just wanted to shower Krishna with flowers. And people enjoyed it so much, and they felt so much of an inspiration from the aesthetic nature of offering our reciprocal offerings to Radha and Gopinath, that it became so much a part of our life, waiting for this flower festival every year. And after some time, we were offering over 2,000 pounds of flowers as an offering. First to Krishna, and then the Mahaprasad we all shared with each other. And little by little, Goverdhan Eco Village began, and different groups would come from different parts of the world. And first it was a few people coming to the flower festival, then a few more. And soon it was a couple hundred. And we would make like a section of the temple just for all of you. And gradually you took up the temple room. So just this year, I was in America, and I got one of those Zoom calls where everybody's looking at those little squares where our friends are in those squares. And they were saying, they didn't say it this way, but this is what actually happened. We used to have this wonderful flower festival for our community, but now there's no space for us. And in modern terminology, I was thinking that our whole temple has been occupied by foreign people.
Foreign invaders.
Foreign invaders, right. Foreign invaders. So we suggested let us have two flower festivals, one for the community and one for all the foreign invaders. And we are so honored and grateful for all of you for invading us with your love and your kindness so nicely. And I believe Radhika Ranjan Prabhu wanted a little flower festival today. So somehow or other it's happening. Your desire is transforming the destiny of the universe. How many of you plucked flowers? So there is actually a very essential philosophical, sociological, cultural, and spiritual lesson that we could learn from this flower festival. It is the idea of unity in diversity. In seeing when we understand the unity we all have as spirit souls, as children of God, as parts of God, then with the consciousness of that unity, we can truly appreciate and celebrate our diversity. And this is where spiritual realization is so important for all the various diversities that are within this universe. What to speak of this little earth planet that we're living on. Our tendency, because of the ahankar, which is the Sanskrit for the false ego, we're all janasya mohoya mahamameti. We're identifying with this conscious that I am this body, and whatever is in relation to this body is mine. Now, the concept of I and mine is not a problem, but the concept of our definition of I and mine could create big problems. And this is where every great spiritual teacher throughout history of this world, in all places, established as a foundational premise the question of who am I? Am I this body? If I am this body, then the idea of I am this body is something real, something that can create truth and unity. But this body is always changing. Dehinosmin yatha dehi komaram yoganam chana. Tata dehantara pratyar dhirastatranamuyati. Each and every one of us, we were just a little, like the size of a pea in a womb of a mother at one time. And little by little, we started growing. And we grew hands and fingers and eyes and hearts and brains and livers and lungs and every other part. And then we're born. And as far as we think I am the mind, what was your mind when you were an infant child? You were probably crying for the milk of your mother. Yes? Something we all have in common. Now, when was the last time you cried for the milk of your mother? That means your mind has so much changed. And the body is changing so much. Because everything in this world is in a constant state of change. That's actually what material existence is. Material existence is not an illusion. Material existence is an eternal reality where everything in it is constantly changing under the power of time. Whatever money, whatever influence, whatever beauty, whatever skills, whatever knowledge, can anyone obstruct the forward movement of time? Not even for a moment. Everything is changing. From childhood to youth to old age. And then the Gita describes inevitable for everyone. In the past, present, and future, the body will die. But then the Gita explains actually the body doesn't die. The elements of the body just change like everything else, just like it's changing in our life. It just changes in another way. And the mind, we all know how much that changes. So actually, who am I? Who is the witness? From being a baby child to being an old person. And what is that consciousness? What happens when the body and mind goes through the change that's called death? That means the life force, the consciousness, in Sanskrit, the jiva, the soul, it simply moves to another location. Asamsijanani yata vihaya. Bhagavad Gita tells the body and the mind are like sets of clothes. It's like the body is like the clothes you're wearing, and your mind is like your underwear. And you can suffer a lot of problems if you have dirty underwear. So the whole purpose of yoga is to clean your mind, is to clean your underwear nicely. And you can't clean your underwear nicely unless you understand who I am. I'm not the outer clothes. I'm the person who's wearing the outerwear and underwears. And what is the nature of the soul? Mamayavam so jiva loke jiva buddha sanatana. We are all a child, a part of the Supreme Soul. The Vedic literatures, Upanishads describe Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Bahunam Yovidadati Kama. The analogy is given, there is the sun planet, and emanating from the sun planet is limitless sun rays. Now, each sun ray is individual. It's separate. But they all have the same origin, which is the sun planet, and also they have the same qualities as the sun planet. And therefore, they have the same qualities as each other. They give heat and they give light. So the jiva is a spark of God. We're all godly. Satchit Ananda, the nature of the true self, who you are, who I am, and who everyone else is that lives. We're beyond birth and death, eternal, not influenced by time, full of knowledge and awareness. And that knowledge is our relationship with ourself, our relationship with our body, our relation with our mind, our relationship with our source, God, and our relationship with nature and each other. This is knowledge. And when we realize this and live according to this principle, Ananda, then there is happiness, ecstasy. And that ecstasy, that Ananda, is experienced to the degree we realize the potential we all have as parts of God to unconditionally loved and be loved. To the extent we understand how sacred I am as a person, and to be grateful for our existence in that way, nothing in this world can really harm us because our happiness is indestructible. But as long as we're trying to find happiness on the inevitably destructible, then we're always going to be living in different degrees of happiness, distress, honor, dishonor, pleasure, pain, and all kinds of fear. So when we understand the divinity of our true self, then we could understand the inherent divinity of the true self wherever there's life. And then we don't live to exploit, because the tendency to exploit is avidya. For a spiritually minded person, it's a sign of great weakness. The material world, yanisha sarva bhutanam. What is night for an enlightened being is like day for a person who's in ignorance. And vice versa. In this material world, people try to show how strong they are by exploiting others. But to spiritual people, that's a sign of deep insecurity, ignorance, and weakness. Strength is when we're actually in that knowledge and in that experience that we want to honor, respect, and serve others. As Radhika Ranjan, she was explaining to me today his prayer, to be an instrument of God's grace. That is strength. That is indestructible. And when we see that unity of life itself and reality, then we actually appreciate diversity. Different religions, different races, different species. In love, we appreciate the diversity of creation. In ego, we're very insecure about this diversity has so much potential to interfere with my quest to be happy under this misconception of I am this body and what is in relation to this body is mine. So how does this all relate to the flower festival? Because I already established that this is what I'm supposed to talk about. You all plucked flowers. The idea of this plucking flowers is given in Bhagavad Gita. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhakta prayachati. If Krishna says, if someone offers me a leaf, a fruit, or a little water with love and devotion, I accept it. Now, anyone could offer a leaf, a flower, or a little water. But to speak of some people can offer a fruit. Krishna doesn't accept the quantity or the apparent material value of something. God accepts the sincerity of our intent, which means our devotion, our will to love. And how we treat each other is so much how we express our love for God. It's an inseparable principle. So there are people here today from so many races, from so many nationalities, from so many religious backgrounds, from so many social statuses of society. Nobody's going to see when these flowers are offered that I offered that petal. You're not going to recognize. There's no difference between a billionaire's petal and a simple farmer's petal. There's no difference if we're black or white or red or yellow or brown, or whether we're male or female, educated or uneducated, Indian, American, German, Russian, Ukrainian, Pakistani, Palestinian, Israeli. You're not going to recognize that any of these flower petals are coming. They're just flower petals. But they were plucked by somebody with a feeling of devotion. And when we offer ourselves a single petal, we understand that Krishna doesn't need our petal, but he wants our love. He wants our sincerity. And why does God want our love and sincerity? Because we all have free will. That's what love is about. And when we offer with love and sincerity, we're opening our hearts to receive the infinite love of God's grace. And the testimony that we've received that, we want to share it in whatever we do with everyone. That's our nature. Sometimes Radhanath Prabhu, he sounds very loud. He doesn't need microphones. But God just made him in this way so he could just share this grace with the world with such exuberance. Yes? And Kaustubha Prabhu, with such meticulous understanding, is just trying to share this grace with the world. And we have Radhika Ranjan and Janavi Devi, they sing with such sweet, melodious, devotional. It entertains the mind, it melts the heart, and they're just sharing the grace that they've received with the world. That's the nature of spiritual love we want to share. And the nature of spiritual love, the way we share, is we see everyone as a child of God. And we see all of creation as the sacred property of God. Seeing a tree. Actually, Srila Prabhupada, our guru, said like this: when an advanced spiritual person sees a tree, he just doesn't see a tree. He sees a tree. that make sense? He sees the tree. He sees a living being that's giving life to the tree. And he's seeing God who's giving the body and the living being the life. So he's seeing Krishna, an eternal child of Krishna, and the beautiful creation that's formed around. And therefore doesn't see the tree as something to neglect or exploit, but sees a tree as something in our heart to actually respect, honor, and worship the presence of our innermost aspiration to show our love for God. That facility is there in every tree and every plant. What to speak of all humanity and all living beings. Today I was walking around with some wonderful devotee guests, and we met just near the cows. And then we went to see the donkeys. How many of you have seen our donkeys? They're just beautiful people. Whether you like the bodies of donkeys or not, it doesn't really make any difference. They're life-loving people who have the same essential, inherent desires as we do. Well-being and happiness. But in this precious human life, we have this opportunity to realize it in its truest, deepest state. So yes, we offer one leaf or one flower petal, and to the extent there's love and devotion and a sincere intent for that, that flower petal to Krishna or to God, whatever name we may have, is more valuable than 100 billion or trillion rupees, dollars, or euros, or whatever other currency you may have. Because love is beyond these perishable value systems of this world. And during this festival, it's not just I'm offering mine, but I lose my ego, my separateness, when I see all of my flower petals are mixed with everybody else's flower petals, and therefore the offering to the Lord and the offering that's bringing us joy is the unity of all of our offerings. And that's what kirtan is. This chanting of God's names is a way of expressing our gratitude and our love for God. Hare Krishna, Radha Krishna. And there are many names. But this Maha Mantra is beyond any sectarian conditionings. It's a universal mantra that cleanses the mind and awakens within the soul the inherent love that is our deepest nature. Which is expressed within this world that we live in the form of compassion, in the form of seva. We don't need to exploit things anymore. We want to serve. So when we're sitting and chanting japa ourselves, we're filling our hearts with God's grace, with God's love, so that we could live in that spirit throughout the day. And when we're performing kirtan, it's like a flower festival. All our voices are together. Sankirtan. Everyone is making an offering of the flower petals of our sincerity of devotion, our sincerity for the well-being of the whole world. And when we're chanting with sincerity, that sound vibration, it actually spreads throughout the universe. Sound is not just limited to what our ears hear. It's a purifying vibration that reverberates throughout creation. A vibration of God's love. So in this way, kirtan is actually a service to the world. In forgetfulness of our eternal reality as jivas or spirit souls, as parts of God, as eternal loving servants of God and each other. We try to solve our problems, and the solution creates bigger problems than the original problem, even if it solves the problem. Does that make sense? Today's world, every time we try to solve a problem without understanding this sacred virtue of seva rather than exploitation, then we're creating another problem. We may create a technology where one little gadget can do what 1,000 people can do. But then there's 1,000 people who are unemployed. So that's another problem. And then you have to engage them in different types of engineering where they're creating more gadgets and like this and that. And in the process, so much pollution to the atmosphere, to the world. I spoke to somebody this morning in Chicago. He said, I've lived here for so many years. I've never seen. It's the middle of January. Not a single snowflake has fallen from the sky yet. You know, Christmas is not white. It's nothing. What's happening? You know, scientists don't know if humanity could even live beyond this century, the way things are being exploited and polluted. And in many ways, you know, for decades and decades, people are exploiting nature carelessly, trying to solve one problem. But when our solution is based on this principle of exploitation, it creates another problem. It's the law of nature. Actual solutions to problems is when we harmonize, even if we have science and even if we have technology and all of these other things, in and of themselves, they're not polluting the world. It's this exploitative disconnection from the soul and from God and from each other that's causing this. Otherwise, we could use all of these things in harmonious ways with respect for nature and each other. That's the greatest need. But now that there is visually a serious emergency situation coming upon us, thoughtful people start taking it seriously. Otherwise, we just conveniently just live in ignorance. So in one sense, the problems of the world are wonderful opportunities to actually take seriously our responsibility and our potential. And that's where kirtan, purifying our own hearts with the grace of the Lord and sharing that with each other as a community, with all of our diversities, and sharing it with the world and all beings with all diversity. Not to exploit, but to enrich, to nourish, and to serve. That's Dharma. That's bhakti. That's at the heart of all true spirituality. The will to connect with God's love and compassion and to share it. And in the enlightened state, to deeply feel that ecstatic connection and deeply feel the ecstatic, compassionate mood to share it. Someone asked my guru, Srila Prabhupada, who's actually a journalist, what do you hope to get by chanting Hare Krishna? Of course, they were expecting a liberation or happiness or something like this. Prabhupada said, what we hope to get from chanting Hare Krishna is chanting Hare Krishna. Thank you for laughing. I was really hoping that would happen. What does that mean? That means now we're chanting these beautiful mantras to purify our hearts, to connect with that love, and to rise above the exploitative needs of the ego. And in the perfect state, we carry on chanting as a celebration and an expression of that love forever. So in a few minutes, we'll be having kirtan and we'll be offering the flowers. And actually, even if you did not pluck any flowers, just the fact that you appreciate the sight of the flowers, it means you're actually offering it. It's as good as plucking without plucking, because it's Krishna's Bhava Grahi Janardana. He accepts our love, our devotion, the sincerity of our intent. I'm kind of like a little old useless person, and I don't really know how to do anything very good. But I did discover a secret. I can't say I'm very good at it, but I really appreciate it. Would you like to know the secret? There's more joy in appreciating somebody else doing something wonderful than doing it ourselves. Does that make sense? Because doing it ourselves, again, we're grateful to be an agent, a vessel, an instrument of God's love. But when we see somebody else doing that sincerely, that gives us so much joy. And it may give Krishna more pleasure for us to appreciate someone else doing it than if we do it ourselves. But still, we should be trying our best to do it ourselves. Doesn't mean we're just lazy, let everyone else and I'm happy. We do the best we can because we have this body, we have this mind, we have this intelligence, we have these abilities, we have these resources. We want to utilize everything the best we can with all of our hearts and souls. But when we see anybody else doing that, that gives us great joy. And the basic principle of the teachings of the Bible, of the Gita, is to live without envy. To live celebrating other people's good fortune. Because sometimes, even if we're doing something for God, we're trying to exploit it for ourselves. But if we're really doing it for the pleasure of God, then we'll be very happy to see other people doing. So I'm sorry if I'm kind of going crazy in my talk today, but this is the opportunity. When you see all these flowers being offered to Krishna, even if you don't pluck them, you're happy for those who pluck them. And if you're happy for those who pluck them, you get the same credit or even more than the plucker. Haribo. And those who are offering the flowers, if we're appreciating that they're offering these flowers to Krishna, we get the same blessings as if we offered. That's the nature of appreciation of others' good fortune. And that's where unity and diversity becomes something very healing, very unifying, and very beautiful. Thank you very much.